I'm Stacy Sims, and I'm just going to give everybody a minute or two to get connected here. So many familiar faces. Thanks for coming, everybody. So, hello. We're back again for our second Mindful Poetry Moments virtual gathering. For those who were not here last week, Mindful Poetry Moments is a collaboration between The Well and On Being, and we create resources that combine mindful prompts and poems by poets who have been featured on Poetry Unbound or on Being. And generally those go to schools, but this year the whole world has gotten turned upside down a little. So we've been able to share these resources far more broadly. And we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we were going to be hosting some in-person gatherings to reflect on these poems. Instead, we get to meet so many more of you from different parts of the world. And so our format today will be similar to what we did last week, if you joined us last week. A little different because we're having technology challenges. But the format is basically we're going to listen to the poem we're considering today, Gregory Orr's Let's Remake the World with Words. Troy Bronsick, who is the founder of the Hive. Wave your hands there, Troy. I don't know if everybody can see you. I don't know quite how this whole thing works. But you'll see him in a minute, but he's the Hive Center for Contemplation, Art and Action is a beautiful space in Cincinnati, Ohio, where individuals hold space for all kinds of art, healing, mindfulness, poetry, and movement practices. So he's going to be holding space today for us. And then Eddie Gonzalez, who is the Associate Director of the Civil Conversations and Social Healing Programs from On Being, will lead us into a prompt to do our own poetry responses. We'll write for about 10 minutes. Last week we went into little rooms together, little virtual rooms. We can't figure that out today. Zoom has changed something. So what we're going to do is just ask for individuals to raise their virtual hand in the chat box. And if you want to share either a reflection on your experience or the poem that you created. And then we'll do a final poem reading and talk about next week. So I think that's it. So I'm super grateful for everyone for being here. I love holding space, but what I love even more is having space held for me. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Troy.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks everybody that's helping pull these pieces together. For a second, we're gonna talk a little bit through. We're gonna read the poem together, but for a second, just take a couple breaths with me, if you will. And if you're able to kind of notice how you're sitting, where your spine is sit, just kind of take a few breaths, breathing in and then letting your exhale be a little longer than your inhale. Just using this moment to get caught up to the present. Thank you. So I'm going to begin by reading this poem by Gregory Orr. Let's remake the world with words. Listen. Oh, here we go. Let's remake the world with words. Let's remake the world with worlds, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with a purpose. Let's, as Wordsworth said, Remove the dust of custom so things shine again, each object arrayed in its robe of original light. And then we'll see the world as if for the first time, as once we gazed at the beloved who was gazing at us. Let me read that again. Let's remake the world with words, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with purpose. Let's, as Wordsworth said, remove the dust of custom so things shine again, each object arrayed in its robe of original light. And then we'll see the world as if for the first time, as once we gazed at the beloved who was gazing at us. So Gregory Orr is a Master of Fine Arts program director at UVA, retired a few years back. And in this work of remaking the world, he's doing what poets do, which is much more than telling, it's showing. He's inviting us to do more than describe the outer, but instead to describe the inner and really to trust the inner to be enough. In some interviews with Orr, he talks about the existential necessity of poetry, that lyric and poetry, that they emerge with a type of magical power, and that the magic of these words begin to dramatize the experience in front of us. And then he talks about two experiences, disorder and order, and being vividly present to both. Maybe you've noticed this, but we're in disorder right now. A lot of reorienting, a lot of actually before the reorienting, a lot of disorienting. For Orr, if you listen to his interviews, if you listen to the On Being piece, he describes that at age 12, the disorder that really shocked his life loose was the loss of his brother, and that this loss came in a hunting accident at his own hand. And he described how the trauma of this was quickly normalized and bypassed, and that he found in words the ability to take this disorder and this pain and grow more real and present to it, rather than using words to simplify it and kind of speak about it from some high and mighty place to enter into the experience. We are in disorder right now. And the question that keeps arising for me is this a reset button, or will this destroy me? It's easy to go, this is so disorienting. How will we get out of it? Will this destroy the things we've held precious that we're attached to? Or is this a reset that we would make some intentional moves? How will we make the world? And maybe I don't even know the answer to that. Actually, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you don't either. And so what's the magical power of language to begin to access that? Can I resist the temptation to normalize or bypass this moment? So Orr continues, he describes removing the dust of custom, at this point where we kind of gaze at the brilliance of our own very life. How do I gaze at the brilliance of this very moment to bring my utter world, my inner world into utterance? In his interview, he describes that lyrics cling to embodied being. He insists that we stay in our bodies. Lyrics cling to embodied being. So this is a little bit of what the exercise today will invite us to do, to awaken and to stay present with it. For me, this is like the work of Hafiz, who would say, there's no air that God breathes than the air that I breathe, or the air that you breathe. Rather than moving out to kind of speak from some other divine outside of you, what is it that I'm breathing? What is it that I'm knowing and noticing? What is an active soul that's grappling with this chaos doing right now? So the poem closes, he says, and then we'll see the world as if for the first time. So if you remember this morning waking up, and at first there's kind of for me, there was the sound of some birds outside, and then for the first time yet this year, there were the geese flying over that I heard, and they reminded me. But imagine hearing that for the first time, or that moment in the gaze of the beloved, where the openness of this space within matches the openness of what I'm observing. What's David White call it, the conversational nature of reality. How am I alert? How am I alert in this moment? So here's the question for us. How do we begin this in our bodies? The grief, the loss, the fear, the anger, the terror, the laughter. How are we? Yeah, perfectly cued. The little one's laughter right there. Her little question. How is this happening in our very moment that we can be aware of it happening in my body? How can I be aware of it happening in my body in a way that I can be present and allow the words to make themselves, to make this space in front of me? So that's what I want to invite us to do for a second now with a guided practice, is to drop a little further into this work of seeing the world as if for the first time. And then I'll invite Eddie to walk us through the writing exercise. So we'll return to that sitting practice. If you're sitting, or if you're on the floor, or if you're standing, whatever, just take a moment and notice the space around you. Notice the light and the line and the color. Notice the texture, the dimensions. Notice the tastes in your mouth. Appreciate this body of yours and the adventure that it's been on, as you partner with it to pay attention to this moment. So I invite you, if you'd like, to either close your eyes or kind of soften your gaze. Sometimes for practices like this, it's helpful to even turn your screen off for a moment, but just do whatever is natural for you. And just for a moment, return to that breath that we started with. Just noticing your body filled with breath. Noticing the gift of breath, and then exhaling and yielding, letting go of that gift of breath into the present moment. And then with your mind's eye, just get a sense of balance. Imagine the space in front of you, maybe 10 feet away, or the wall across the room. And walk that space, that attention, closer to you, to book reading distance away. And move that attention through the center of the body to a few inches off of your back, noticing the space behind you. And then scanning from the crown of your head, across the back of your skull and your neck, across your shoulders, across the lower back to the sit bones and the hamstrings, to the heels and to the floor. And similarly with the left side of the body, noticing the crown of the head and the left temple and cheek and ear, the neck and shoulder, and off the side of the legs to the hip and knee and to the floor. And just imagine a little bit further outside the body there, the rest of the space that is you, that attention that's just a little further, that we're not simply embodied souls, but we're ensouled bodies, allowing your attention to expand to the left side of your body. And sweeping that through the center of the body slowly. until you arrive to the right side of the body and thinking again about the crown of the head, placing your mind's attention on the side of the face, the neck and the shoulder, your hip and knee into the floor. What is the brilliance of that space to the right of you? Almost like you're standing in the window where the sun's been shining in. And then let that attention come to rest in the middle of the body, this body of yours, where you're experiencing all of this. Starting from the crown of the head down through the busy brain and behind the eyes and between the ears. Relishing all the words and air and food and drink that have come through the mouth, following that to the root of the tongue, swallowing and noticing the center of the neck. Until you drop down to the beating heart and the lungs and the solar plexus, and down to the breath again. And from this place, just considering, how do I welcome what's arising? Not that I necessarily accept it as good, not that I necessarily can even explain it. How do I attend to what is arising as my very life, this very moment? And from this place, just consider how my hands and intellect and the words that come up to me be an expression of what's arising. What is it I'll make of this time? And from that, I invite you to just slowly open your eyes and rejoin our group. Maybe for a moment, just notice a few faces and recognize that they're doing that same inner work. I see Tina and Mary and Anna and Emily and Go, that they're taking a similar journey to the inward and then bringing those words out to the present. Thank you for the practice. Eddie, I'll pass it to you now.
All right. Hi, everyone. Wow, it's so relaxed. I feel like I want to stay there for a little bit longer. It's like staying in bed and hearing the alarm clocks. Let's start something new. Really excited to be with you all and thankful to see all your faces here. We created a prompt for this poem that I think Abby is about to put on the screen. And it builds a little bit off of what we heard Troy say. And thank you, Troy, for your wonderful reflections. In my work, I think a little bit about what we do with what we're bringing from the past. And I feel like there's a bit of that in this poem when he's saying, let's remake the world with, there's almost this invitation to pick up a magic wand. We're almost like Harry Potter, each one of us, or like in the Harry Potter stories where we can cast a spell and use words to do some dusting. And in this case, I loved what Troy said about being a new relationship with our senses, with others, with our places, with the world. And when I think sometimes about intentional hope as it relates to the ways that we engage with the world and the ways that we engage with what has happened in the past, I feel like there's an invitation here from Gregory. You know, what is the reality that we see? What is it that we desire to see? And then how do we get there? What are the tools that are going to help us get there? So today, when we enter into our writing practice, I'd like for us to think about those things that might have come up. We heard a little bit about the grief that might be there, but also maybe the love, the connection that we might feel around us. We might have these very practical things that we're using to kind of think, what if we remade the world with these very practical plans? or we might have more of an emotional center when that comes up. What are the emotions that are coming up for us when I think let's remake the world in a certain way? Um, I also, thinking about this awareness, what's needed right now, and how can we step up in this moment? We see a lot of teachers that are now at home playing parents alongside being teachers to students. We see parents that are also teachers. Each one of us is having to navigate new roles, I think, and in this poem we hear this as well. Generationally, we have young folks saying, grandma, grandpa, let me help you log into Zoom. What is it that you have right now as where you are in your own generational or ancestral lineage that sort of equips you to cast a certain spell and to remake the world in your own specific way? And I invite you in that way to think, this is a poem of celebration in some ways. So celebrating freedom, courage, excitement, longing. What do our eyes want to see? What do our ears want to hear? What is our body looking for? Feel free to be playful with the language and physical. And the last thing that I'll note is just with a sense of humor, um, how can we bring that in today, a sense of playfulness? And perhaps if it's one of these, can we look just to tomorrow or just to the next hour? Can we look years down the road? However far we want to look, um, I just offered those as some reflections as we begin. So we're going to take 15 minutes and then we'll come back. Stacy will use some chimes to bring us back together. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what the wands of our pens create.
So let's take another, excuse me, 2 to 3 minutes and kind of right to the end of our stanza, our thought, and then I'll come back on with the chime. Alrighty, friends. Oh my gosh, you gave us so much to think about, Troy and Eddie and Gregory Orr. So I'm going to turn it back over to Eddie, and I'm going to invite you all to turn on your, if you don't already have it, have your chat box open. And what we'll do is, if you would just write in your chat box, in your chat, if you wish to chat with us, share your poem. Eddie, what do you want to say?
Yeah, if you all want to chat your name, I will just sort of call out in the order that I see them. And last week, what I saw in my group and in the group at large was folks just sort of jumped in and shared their poems if they wanted to read out loud. You're also welcome to just share some reflections that might have come up if you don't want to share the exact poem that you wrote. Feel free to also edit in real time, sometimes as we're reading. Looks like Mahib.
Hello everyone, thank you for this opportunity. I really love this. I don't really used to get this kind of platform, but I'm grateful to all of you. So here we go. If I were to remake the world with words, I would have more pauses than words, more rest than work, more quiet than sound, more space than things, more awareness than thoughts, more stops than running around. When I take a moment and stop, taking a breath in, I feel my body. Resting myself in it, I check in. What I gaze into gazes back at me, reminding me of my nature, something the mind can't see. No words can describe it, no language can conceptualize it. Only I can see Only I can know what I is, like only the silence can know what absence of sound is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahip, where are you calling in from?
Oh, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And let's see, we had a good list of folks that signed in. Manuel, and if you don't mind saying also where you're calling in from.
I am calling from Cincinnati. And if you guys don't mind, I usually read the poems twice because I read it in English and Spanish. I can do that, but I can only read it in English too. So
I love hearing both. Yeah.
So I'm going to read it in English first. Let's remake the world by listening to children, by calling them teachers and masters. Let's go out and play with them and play with each other. Let's be brave and talk to others like children talk to each other. Let's ask why. Let's be amazed by the rain, by the flowers, and by the air. Let's remake the world with insatiable curiosity. Let's remake the world, and this time, let's make it around playgrounds and around walks with no specific destinations. Vamos a rehacer el mundo escuchando a los niños, llamándolos a ellos profesores, maestros. Juguemos con ellos y con nosotros mismos. Seamos valientes y hablemos unos con otros como los niños hablan entre ellos. Preguntemos por qué. Sorprendámonos de nuevo con las flores, los pájaros, el agua. Rehagamos el mundo con curiosidad insaciable. Rehagamos el mundo y esta vez hagámoslo alrededor de parques, alrededor de caminatas sin rumbo fijo.
Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you, Eddie.
This is awesome. Lovely poems. Amy. Oh, Amy said, can we also say where everyone's from? Madeline Meeks. Let's see.
I think you're muted, Amy. Madeline.
Okay, Madeline. We see her. Okay, well, maybe we can, oh, there we are. Great.
It's okay if you can't hear me. We can move on.
No, I can hear
You can. Oh,
yeah, great.
Sorry, I was technical difficulties. But hi, thank you for letting me share. I wrote, let's remake the world with empathy and all those subjective things, important feelings that today's world undermines. Let's remake the world with objective perspective so we can see what the truth of the micro situation really is, less of this is yours and this is mine. Let's remake the world just for one day with popsicle sticks and gobs of cotton candy, encouraging us to think outside of the box like they did when we were children. Let's remake the world for just 1 week where nature is king, how nature was considered and held in the beginning, when vines and hummingbirds, flamingos and lionesses ran the government. Let's remake the world where it's not survival of the fittest, where it's not survival of the privileged, where people care for people and people care for things. Let's remake the world where people understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. All right, I'm seeing here, Mary. Let's see if we can get your mic to work. Oh, can't hear you. Okay, well, Mary's letting me know. I don't think that the mic is working right now. So we'll move to Ana Martinez Amos.
All right, good. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm calling from, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And I wrote, let's remake the world with resilience. Like the resilience of our ancestors when their world was invaded by others from another place. A precious few survived, one here, another there, a pocket of a lucky few together. Let's remember it is the blood of these ancianos, the ancient ones, that flows from our wounds. That's it.
Thank you, Ana.
Thank you.
Let's see, Eliana.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm calling in from Wichita Falls, Texas. And I actually wrote 3, but I can find them together. So there'll be a little bit of repetition, but I'll read it. Let's remake the world with our loose, tingling fingers, try as they might to hold on and fight, with our eyes seeing, as Plato said, the phantoms of the human beings and the other things in water, and later the things themselves. Let's remember today's problems were not yesterday's, yet all these problems are not new. Let's remake the world into the smallest doll we can find. May we not give up on lifting smaller dolls out of small dolls. May we, with our eyes and hands, seeing, as Plato said, the phantoms of the human beings and the other things in water, and later the things themselves. Let's remember the empty churches. Some used to be full and have always been empty. Let's remake the world, starting with a farmer's market and a red-haired seller, placing a blue egg in every single bundle, not to mention the nurse holding her phone up to the dying father's mouth, not forgetting the daughter holding her phone up to her ear. Let's liberate children from freedom to construct stories from silence of loneliness and unwanted.
Thank you, Eliana, for sharing. All right, I'm seeing here a login name of H. Bragusa, or H. Brag USA.
Hi, I'm Holly.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this. It's a beautiful reprieve. Let's remake the world with less. Not thieving quantity, nor hoarding what we have, but with quality. Let's, as Rumi said, keep breaking our hearts till they open, giving out the wealth of our truth. Then we will know the value of more, reflecting gold in the ring of our eyes as we clearly see what we've mined in ourselves.
Thank you. I love this. We're hearing remaking the world with more things and with less things. It's beautiful to hear these. Kaylee.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kaylee from Southern California. I'm in Orange County, actually. Okay, here we go. Let's enter more graciously into this litany of firsts. Let us find comfort in history's memory, resilient and storied, imploring us to hope, to see, to seed. Let us find within us the ancient whisper, the tenderness of wisdom's cadence, and learn its language, to become native to presence and the soil, the stuff of us, it inhabits. Let us pause at the foot of Mount Horeb, still and shaking in the wind, and wait to be awakened to isness again. The holy is composing and awaiting our attunement to their symphonic movement. Her reciprocity, his cosmic mystery, their trinity of loving witness invites the child within us to rise up, to sing, to be newborn to the world and all its storied possibilities. Let us join in their dance of truth, goodness, and beauty, and not miss their ever surprising partnerings. Let us greet atonement, present with us to heal us to original wholeness, our eternal inheritance. Now, beloveds, may we live in this rhythm, in the rhythm of this dance, and walk as souls awake, planting seeds and sparing time to wonder together at the gifts ever springing up in this sacred earth.
Thank you, Kaylee. Hannah.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Hannah, and this is Cora. She's keeping me company. We are from Long Island, New York. And this free write is called Recreate the World with Thread. The bobbin I am wound so tightly. The cotton connective tissue binds my heart and clothes and mask together. We sew masks to cover and isolate so we can save each other. My city is on fire and I am home. My mind is on fire for those not at home. Working the graveyard shifts day after day, we are all bound together by the thread of collective humanity, the clenching of our jaws and hearts. Our invisible breath threads our hearts on a string, the lines of patients, grocery shoppers, essential workers in blessed spacing, all to save the breathing of another, all to ventilate each other's thoughts with prayers. Holding physical space for each other reminds us of how much we love. Let's remake the world, binding us together in peace. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Hannah. And Emily, we do have time.
Nice. And we'll hopefully won't have any children interruptions in my house. We'll see how that goes. I'm actually in Charlottesville, Virginia, so where Gregory Orr taught, which is kind of cool. Let's remake the world with slowness. Sap is water. It doesn't start out as sweet, sticky medicine for pancakes. And if I dumped the sap, all I would have is soggy. I'd take the time with his pancake. The first bite with crisp edges, airy center, buttermilk sour for a moment near the end, mixing with gold. Gold made from steady Vermont hands who hold babies and chainsaws, and the paddle that stirs the gold as it thickens. As it thickens and becomes herself, becomes a treasure. Let's bend ourselves over the things that require slowness, over skinned knees that know when you rush them, over unfurling lettuce, tender and bruisable, over the paper skin of your grandmother, spreading thick cream on her back and her arms and her legs, quieting her old cells. Let us bend ourselves, not over backwards and in haste, but forwards, in protection of the weak, the abused, the tender, the fragile, and give to them slowness. That's all they have ever desired.
Thanks for sharing, Emily. And Stacy, do we have time for one more? How are we on time?
So I think what we should do, this, you guys, this is the best part of my week for sure.
Absolutely.
This is so gorgeous. And before we get to our final reading of the poem, Back to Troy, some invitations and some explanations. So we do record this, and then Abby creates a legacy memory of all our time together by putting the recording as well as any of the response poems that you want to share with us on the well.world news in our blog. We'll send it to you too. We'll email it back to everyone. Abby, anything else you want to say about that?
I have the link to the news page in the chat, and if you go there, you can see the one from last week as well. As well as my email that you can send your poems to.
Does anybody, do we do a follow-up email with that information? Can we?
Yes, there'll be a follow-up.
We'll do a follow-up email with that information for everyone. So then we can, those who have something to read or want to work a little longer on something, you can share that with us as well. And even if it comes a few days later, we'll add it into the collective. So, wow, beautiful, beautiful humans. You have just made my week. Thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be considering Amy Nizuka Matatil's poem on listening to your teacher take attendance. And Amy Tuttle, will you wave at us? And Manuel, who's read to us a couple times, will also be the co-hosting this, holding space for us. So I can't wait till next week. So thank you, everyone. And I want to turn it back over to Troy for a final reading, and then I'll chime us out.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks. Wow, all the things we're remaking, from thread to slowness to kids' words and watery newness in our bodies and less and more. It's great. For a second, just notice what you've done with your body the last hour. Notice the difference of rushing into this space and beginning this meeting, and the things that arose for you, and the things that the ouches and the oohs, and the things that pinged, and the things that gave you pleasure. And I'll close with this poem by Gregory Orr. Let's remake the world with our words. Let's remake the world with words, not frivolously, nor to hide from what we fear, but with a purpose. Let's, as Wordsworth said, remove the dust of custom so things shine again, each object arrayed in its robe of original light. And then we'll see the world as if for the first time, as once we gazed at the beloved who was gazing at us. Thanks for the shared time.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Eddie.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next week.